Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hi, can everyone hear us online? I-
Senator Haley, can you hear us? He's not.
Hello? Hello.
Hi, can you hear us?
Can you hear me? This is David Haley.
Yes, Senator, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can, yes.
All right.
Sorry
Thank
for the
you.
technical difficulty.
Thanks for joining us. We had a little technology issue here in the room, so we're just getting ready to get started.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Apologize for the delay. We had a little technology issue. Hopefully we will get back a few of the folks that joined us via Zoom. I think we have a few task force members online. We're online, so hopefully we'll get them back in a little bit. I'm Alan Carr. I'm Executive Director of Visit Kansas City, Kansas, and I'm co-chairing Wyandotte County's World Cup Readiness Task Force with County Administrator David Johnston. We've got several people here in the room, so we might just quickly go around and do some introductions. We'll start over here on the left.
Edgar Galicia, Central Avenue Betterment Association.
Raul Villegas, Soccer Nation.
Greg Kindle with the Wyandotte Economic Development Council.
Representative Pam Curtis.
Linda Hoskins Sutton, Board of Trustees, Kansas City, Kansas Community College.
Dennis Mills, Vice President, Charles Edward Pope Senior Foundation.
CEO of Charles Edward Pope Senior Foundation. My name is Lisa King.
Francisco Lutardo, Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. We have been at this for 1 year. We had our first meeting almost a year ago now to start organizing and seeing how Wyandotte County can best prepare for the 2026 World Cup. So today we have in front of you our report on just that. So today we're gonna go through the report. It's lengthy, so we're not gonna hit every page, but we're gonna give you the highlights. I'm hoping we'll have some discussion if there's any questions or comments from task force members. And then I'm hoping we can get, I believe we need one more person to join us from the task force so we can have a quorum to hopefully vote on accepting this report. So I will get started. Again, we've got a task force made up of members from the community. We organized work groups that I'll talk about in a moment, and I want to thank everyone that helped with those work groups, as well as task force members, as well as a number of community members that helped us through this process. As you all recall, the purpose of our task force is to get Wyandotte County ready to welcome visitors for the World Cup. The task force was formed by Mayor Garner. And we have three priorities: to ensure Wyandotte County is ready to host visitors during the World Cup, to promote Wyandotte County businesses and events to visitors that come to the Kansas City area for the event, and to welcome visitors that make their way into Wyandotte County, ensure that they have a good experience while they're here. The process we've used to develop this report, we held 2 public comment sessions where we heard from members of the public. We had a public idea submission form where the public could submit their ideas and suggestions on how we can best prepare. We received over 50 submissions via that form. We reviewed in our work groups hundreds of different ideas from dealing with all of the different topics that we're looking at. And we had over 100 people participate in our work groups from throughout Wyandotte County to give us their perspectives. The 4 work groups, as everyone that's been to these meetings before is familiar with, is our marketing task force, our marketing work group that I led up, our neighborhoods and residents group that Linda Hoskin-Sutton led up, our business and workforce work group that Greg Kindle led up, and then the on-site experience group that Representative Curtis led up. Yeah, if you can forward, my clicker seems to. There we go. So as I said, in front of you today is the report that we have developed. It is lengthy. We tried to include a lot of helpful information for the community. For today's purposes, we're not going to hit on every single page, but hopefully everyone has a chance to read it. If you do want a summary, there is a 2-page executive summary that is, I think, actually quite a good reflection of what you'll find in the rest of the report. It's quite a good summary. So to start, I just want to go over a couple of the sections of the report and just give a brief overview. The first is, what is this opportunity? And I think many of the folks here on the task force know what we're talking about, but if there's anyone from the public watching, we are working to prepare for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be June 11th through 19th of 2026. This will be the largest World Cup ever. They're expanding to 48 teams, up from 32 teams during the last tournament. That means there will also be more matches, 104 matches total throughout the tournament. It's hosted in North America, in US, Canada, and Mexico, 16 different venues across those countries. And as you'll see on this map, Kansas City has a special place as we are hosting, and there's no one else around us. And so we have a great opportunity to draw visitors from the middle part of the country. Kansas City was selected to host 6 matches, including a quarterfinal, and I'll show you more about that. KC 2026 is an organization that was formed regionally that is doing all of the planning with FIFA for the World Cup. So just remind, as I do at every meeting, our purview is not to plan the official events that are taking place during the World Cup. That's what KC 2026 is doing. We're about how we can best get Wyandotte County ready. The matches, the 6 matches will be at Arrowhead Stadium, which is being renamed Kansas City Stadium for the purposes of the tournament. There will also be a fan festival that will be held at the World War I Museum, where fans that don't have tickets can go and watch the game and experience different aspects of soccer. 2 other opportunities, base camps. These are training sites for the teams to prepare for the tournament. There are 3 locations in the Kansas City area that have been selected by FIFA as possible base camp locations. That does include Compass Minerals National Performance Center here in Wyandotte County, as well as the KC Current Training Facility in Riverside, Rock Chalk Park in Lawrence, And then also, we are anticipating that the training site for those 6 matches, the teams will come in and a day before do some training for that match. That will take place at Children's Mercy Park here in Wyandotte County. Schedule for the tournament, you can reference this in the report. I've highlighted here in red anything that takes place in Kansas City. We potentially, the base camp, according to the RFP, has to be made available 2 weeks before the start of the tournament. So potentially we're looking at the week of Memorial Day when the base camp team arrives here in Kansas City. Fan Fest, the official dates have not been announced from KC 2026, but it would likely open at the start of the tournament on July 11th. The first match in Kansas City is June 16th. Also during this period, Juneteenth falls during the tournament, and we will have a match the following day on June 20th here in Kansas City. Father's Day also falls during the tournament. We'll also have a match on June 25th, which is also a day that Team USA will be playing in Los Angeles. So there'll be a lot of soccer eyes likely locally on the tournament that day. Great day for watch parties. We will host a round of 32, one of the knockout rounds on July 3rd, the day before the 4th of July, which also is the 250th birthday of the United States. So there's some great opportunities there. And then finally, as I said, we'll host a quarterfinal on July 11th before the tournament concludes on July 19th. In terms of the qualification, we've also included in the report a qualification schedule. Everything you ever wanted to know about qualifying for the World Cup and how countries do that. Probably the most relevant thing right now is that so far 7 teams of the 48 have qualified. That includes the 3 host countries from North America. They're automatically qualified: Canada, Mexico, and the United States. But 2 teams from Asia have qualified: Japan and Iran. 1 from Oceania, New Zealand, and 1 from South America, Argentina. And you can see the next round of qualification matches is in June. And there's potential some other countries that will qualify during that period. And then they start back up again in September and go through November. And so we'll have the majority of teams qualified by November. The draw will take place at the end of the year. They haven't announced the date, but it's been December in the past. And then there will be 2 teams. There will be a playoff that happens coming out of the qualifications, and there will be 2 teams that will qualify for the tournament in March out of that playoff tournament that they hold. In terms of how this event will impact Wyandotte County, regionally, KC 2026 is projecting that there will be 650,000 visitors in our metro area over this 5-week period. Anywhere between 30% and 50% of those visitors are expected to be international visitors, with the rest being regional. They are estimating a $650 million direct economic impact to our region's economy. In Wyandotte County, we expect businesses, especially in the tourism areas of lodging, food and beverage, retail, and transportation, to have the greatest benefit. But there will be some direct benefits and activities here in Wyandotte County. As mentioned, we are expecting a high likelihood of there being a team based out in Western Wyandotte County, which will mean a lot of their fans coming and spending their time here. We do also expect the teams to train before each match at Children's Mercy Park, which will draw the teams and media into Wyandotte County. It's also possible that we will have a park and ride location. There will be very limited parking available at the match site at Arrowhead. So they're going to be having everyone, most people bust, most of the visitors and attendees bust into Arrowhead or the Fan Fest. So they have not finalized, but there's a likelihood that there will be a park and ride somewhere here in the western part of the metro, possibly in Wyandotte County. In terms of specific industry impacts, lodging, of course, is expected to be fully occupied during the peak times of the tournament with much higher rates than you would typically see. One concern that has been brought forward is short-term rentals. Because of the huge demand for lodging that's anticipated in the metro, you will likely see a number of homeowners exploring putting their house up as a short-term rental during this period. So that does pose some challenges with the licensing requirements we have. There also is the potential, as they've seen in other major events, that landlords could look to evict tenants during this period to take advantage of the increased income from these short-term rentals. So it's something we definitely need to be looking out for. On the business side, you'll hear more about this in a minute in our report, but there's a number of business impacts and opportunities for businesses to get ready. I just last week was on a task force that's been set up within KC 2026 focusing on small businesses. And they will actually be putting together, they're working on some modeling to help us understand what would be the biggest impact days for businesses and how far out that impact could extend, so that different parts of the metro will understand maybe what opportunity they have to generate business during those periods. Infrastructure and services will likely see an increased demand in transportation, security, waste management, and communication networks. And for residential and community impacts, you'll hear more about our recommendations, but you could see impacts such as increased traffic, parking, as more people come into certain neighborhoods for events, some engagement in beautification and cleanup efforts to make sure we look as good as we can, and ultimately to be welcoming of visitors. That is our first sections of the report. The next section is our recommendations. As I said, these were crafted through our work groups, so the process I outlined. For the purposes of the report, we have 3 categories we use for these recommendations. The first are the recommendations themselves. These are the ideas we believe will be the most impactful and most achievable for Wyandotte County. We've also included what we are calling some ideas to consider. We thought these are all good ideas, but in order to make them happen, there's going to have to be someone to champion them, to lead up that effort, and ultimately to provide funding, which will be one of the greatest challenges we have to some of our preparations. And then lastly, we've listed what we're calling big ideas. These are ideas that will take more time, more effort, and maybe more funding, but would likely have a big impact. And so we've wanted to list some of those here. You'll also see, as recommendations, you'll also see a number of these ideas as ideas in the ideas section. We're not necessarily recommending them simply because we're not sure if we have a champion to make them happen. But so if there's any local organizations or businesses out there, if any of these ideas really appeal to you, we certainly would welcome folks to take the lead to make some of these happen. For the purposes of the report, we've divided it into 5 sections. Special events was originally in the marketing work group, but it was really talked about by every single. So we've combined all of those ideas into one section. So I'm going to have the work group leads go through their sections, and I would welcome the task force if you have any questions as we go along through each section or comments to please give it to that at that point. Anything so far before we get into the recommendations? All right, I will start with marketing, which again was the workforce, the work group that I helped lead up. There's really 3 big picture categories here. The first is to develop marketing tools that we can use to market Wyandotte County. A lot of these things are things that Visit KCK, as the chief tourism marketing organization here in the county, will lead up. So it's things like developing a website specific to the World Cup to welcome visitors into Wyandotte County, social media platforms, special collateral materials. The next area is promotion. How are we going to promote ourselves to visitors to make people want to come and spend their time here? And so we're looking at some strategies of how we can highlight the global ties and diversity that we see in Wyandotte County to these 48 countries that may be here. Developing some specific advertising campaigns, advertising to these companies, as well as PR offerings and advertising and promoting the assets that we have throughout the county. And then the third category we have is branding. One of our big ideas is that we want to develop a specific Wyandotte County brand and logo that can be used by the county to promote ourselves for the World Cup. There will be restrictions on using the KC 2026 and FIFA logos and branding, so we advise any businesses not to do that. But we want to develop something that Wyandotte County can use to rally everyone around. And this would be an effort that our group would pick up in this. And then finally, storytelling, coming up with what are those key messages and how we're going to promote Wyandotte County to the world. The ideas to consider here, there were a couple really good ideas, but again, they'll just take funding. One is to develop a social media help center where we would have local residents online answering questions that people have during this period and helping direct people to places and things to do in Wyandotte County. Another, I think, great idea that we may try to pursue if we can find funding is once the base camps are announced and once we know what team would be coming to Compass Minerals, actually do a blitz into that country where we do a media blitz and send representatives to promote Wyandotte County in Kansas. Those are our marketing recommendations. Are there any questions or comments?
Just a quick question, Alan, on the branding part of it, what do you think the status is or timing is on a local brand being determined? I know that as we get ready to do some of that work that we're doing on our end, we'd like to start being able to brand it to the local look, and I'm not sure where we are with that.
Yeah, in our recommendations, we are recommending by the third quarter of this year, so the July to September timeframe, to have that brand developed and available.
And just as a follow-up, because I get some of those calls from folks who have branding ideas or that may want to be considered. Will that be is it an RFP process, or is that going to basically go through Visit KCK, you think?
So we're still working on that process, but I think my intention is to bring back our work group. There was a lot of really engaged folks from different organizations and marketing groups throughout the county, and to get kind of have a stakeholder group that will kind of help guide us through kind of how that process works and ultimately what we come up for that. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll be working on an events calendar for events in Wyandotte County. We currently have an events calendar at visitkck.com. They're the Visit Kansas City, Kansas website. So we'll be developing something specific for World Cup related events during this time frame, and then we will also work to make sure those get fed into the regional calendar that's being collected by Mark. That will ultimately, I think KC 2026 is committed that they will develop some sort of an events calendar or portal that they can refer visitors to as well. All right, no other questions. We will move on to special events, which I guess is me as well. Sorry, let me go back here. Under special events, there's really three areas we looked at. The first is what we're calling official events. So as I mentioned, these would be any official FIFA events taking place in Wyandotte County, such as the training days that would take place at Compass Mineral or at Children's Mercy Park, and the base camp at Compass Minerals. So we would look at how we can support them as a county. One of the big areas we looked at was watch parties. We know that there's a lot of interest, whether you're a bar and restaurant or maybe a neighborhood or organization, on how you can participate in watch parties. So we'll want to both collect who's doing watch parties, but also make sure that the community is aware of guidance on what they're allowed to do. What sort of licensing might be required. There has, for past World Cups, been licensing requirements. KC 2026 has said June of this year they hope to have that information available of what those requirements and costs would be. And then we will publicize those events. One of the big ideas that came out of this was to have a central location in Wyandotte County for a watch party, and the recommendation is that take place at Memorial Hall. And so that's something we want to explore, and we are strongly recommending that we look at that as a watch party site of how we can make that happen, activate Memorial Hall as well as the area around it. That also dovetails nicely with, if anyone's familiar with St. John's and what they do for Croatia when they're playing. They have a huge following, and they are planning now for even bigger events. And so I think you can have this whole area kind of connected between. And then finally, community activations. So these are, again, ways that the community, our attractions and restaurants and businesses can welcome visitors in. We're encouraging people to look at some of these key dates, like Juneteenth and the 4th of July, and how they might structure events during those periods. We had ideas about putting together pop-up experiences, guided tours, food tours, history tours, etc. One of the big ideas was to really try to activate Quindaro and get more eyes on the Quindaro ruins, and possibly have living history tours where you have reenactors on certain dates in Quindaro to provide an elevated experience for visitors, other than just being able to do some of the great tours that they do now.
Trying to figure out how we would handle it. We're working with an international marketing company now called Compass. They're going to be advertising our events. We had the first emancipation in the state of Kansas. That's what our event is going to be about. Cambodia is going to be involved with it. The ambassador from the parliament is actually coming to the event. So how would we work that in with you all is my question.
Yeah, and so those are things we'll want to collect all of those opportunities, put them, make sure that they're listed as events and opportunities. But I think if there's things that particularly would appeal to international audiences, work both through our marketing as well as what the state of Kansas is doing and KC 2026 is doing to market those opportunities to the international. We also had some good ideas that came forward that, again, if we can find a champion to make those happen. One is to create an interactive community mural, find a large wall or place where we could have people help paint a mural while they're here that would live on after the event. There was a suggestion to create open street events like you see in some different countries around the world where one day a week, a lot of times it's a Sunday, you close the street and just make it open to pedestrian traffic or bike traffic and have kind of a street festival. There's also a suggestion to create an international village where we would bring together different cultures into one area. That is our special events. Any questions or comments there?
Alan, sorry, I feel like I always have lots of questions, but a lot of this interacts with the business outreach piece of it. So I figured this is about as good a spot as any to ask some of these questions. So as we're looking at supporting KC 26 and FIFA, which will likely no doubt brand like say Compass Minerals, for instance, or even if like Memorial Hall across the street ends up being a KC 26 location, I want to try to get an understanding or at least start the conversation. The local businesses want to make sure that they have access to, the crowds coming in. And yet I'm fairly certain that as we go, great, Memorial Hall, for instance, might be a KC 26 identified location. Does that also mean that because our local businesses wouldn't be paying for, KC 26 rights, does that mean then that we'd have to find different locations for our local events? And where they could have like a vendor fairs and where folks could be a part of that, because that's going to be the natural rub, right? Everybody's going to want to be where there's a lot of traffic. But if those are areas that are off limits because of royalties and rights, then I just want to make sure that we message early and often where we can get our local businesses engaged.
Yeah, and I don't think we're far enough down the line with Memorial Hall to know sort of what restrictions there may be. We're proposing that as a site, whether KC 2026 makes that an official regional watch party or whether it's just a Wyandotte County hosted watch party. As you said, that could make some differences in what we're allowed to do within that site. But, I think the county administrator we talked a little bit about this idea, and he would love to see us close down, part of the street and have food trucks and vendors, outside, then be able to go in, watch matches on, select days. It likely would not be every day of the tournament, but when there's relevant matches.
So I think it's good. I figured that'd be kind of the response. But as whoever's in that role of negotiating, like what is FIFA KC26, where is that line then that becomes our opportunity so that we know how close that we can start doing our own events and making sure that that's clear when we're talking to the KC26 folks. Just want to make sure we don't get down the line and folks go, well, hey, how come I'm not inside Memorial Hall because that's a, UG owned asset, and yet it's because of funding and royalty and setting it up as a identified KC26. I just want to make sure we set the ground rules, that we are clear about where we can do things and where there's other rules that apply because it's an international event. Just want to make sure that we're having that conversation and that people understand we are asking those same questions.
And, so I guess that also points out, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but, if we talk about having an official site in downtown Kansas City, Kansas, that makes even more important. Accessibility to downtown is a challenge today. I don't see it improving greatly in a year. Hopefully, we do have some improvements, but then also just people being able to find their way here. So just jumping ahead, that makes that, if we do indeed focus on Memorial Hall, wayfinding. And then I just want to be sensitive too. I know that the UG budget is very tight, and if they take that on, I see a lot of UG resources and support needed to standing up. And so we need to think that through as well. And I assume there will be something out west, since sporting, and even I assume that they will be having activities, and probably that will spill over to the Legends, even though we don't specifically mention that.
Yes, and it's just unclear at this point with the base camp and or Children's Mercy Park if there could or might be some public events out there. But we anticipate many of the venues out west looking to do something. And I know we've heard from a few of the large properties out there that are looking to have their own. Any other questions on events? Comments? All right, we will move on to neighborhoods and residents, and Linda Hoskin-Sutton to give that report.
Yes, thank you. And as we mentioned, we're not going to go through each and every item, but our main areas is engagement, thinking about the neighborhoods, and that's going to be a huge part of it, because you can't invite people into this area without first making the communities, the neighborhoods aware of it. So that's going to be a big part of it, educating our neighborhoods, getting buy-in with that. And some of the things, if you'll bring it up, that'll help, and they won't have to try to just completely listen to what I'm saying. They can see it on the screen. One of the big things we thought of first was a neighborhood resource kit. We could put something together whereas we can get it to the community in a uniform way so that they will know what is going on. And community cleanups, we want the city to be clean, but this has far-reaching potential, because we don't want to just clean up for the World Cup. We want to start beautification on KCK and keep this going on forever. And I see that some of that is already starting. I saw that on the television on I can't think of the group right now, so I'll keep on. But the cleanup is going to be important. And then special events, a big idea was if grant, and as you mentioned, money is going to be tight, but if there is some type of events that, like a contest that groups could participate in, or have neighborhood events, if funding is possible for that. And so then our next area was youth and soccer. This is a soccer town with us having 2 professional soccer teams, male and female. So sportsmanship campaign, that's a big idea. If we could have some type of training for our youth to foster anti-bullying, to not foster anti-bullying, but to get a way to show students that that's not a good thing to do, and anti-racism efforts. And then soccer asset promotion, draw attention to the assets in Wyandotte County, such as the blind soccer pitch at Kansas State School for the Blind. And they have already committed. They are actually going to do that. And then some of our other schools that have soccer, we will be contacting them as well. Could we go to the next slide and let's see. And then the other part of that will affect the neighborhoods is housing and rental, and Alan mentioned that already. We want to do some education and outreach in that area because we know that some people are going to want to rent their homes or a room from their home or their entire home during this time. And there's requirements for that, and they're kind of lengthy. So we are hoping that as the UG take a look at that, that we will be able to assist the people who are wanting to visit this area to come in and be able to get short-term rental. I think our neighbors to the south am I correct? They're not going to engage in that. They're not going to have short-term rental. So this is an opportunity for us. And we want the neighborhoods to go through the process so that we will know what's going on and not just have a big uproar. The big idea on this is host events from homeowners to overview policies and application processes to have a short-term rental, to allow site applications if possible. And then the other part of that, which goes along with the neighborhoods, cleaning up the neighborhoods, possible events in some of the neighborhoods, and then the rental. And the other part of that, before I get to the impact, is we don't want residents who already live here to be impacted in a negative way. We don't want any rentals, anyone that's already renting to be displaced so that someone can make more money just because the World Cup is in. So we're wanting to educate the community, the neighborhoods, because we want them to be a big part of this. In fact, that is a big part of it, to make our visitors feel welcome. And we want buy-in from the neighborhood. So we have to include them from the beginning, letting them know what's going on and getting their buy-in, the cleanup, and just beautification all the way around. And then the other thing that will impact the neighborhoods, the residents, is traffic and parking. So if there is a short-term rental on your street, or if there is a party on your street, how is that going to impact the traffic and the parking? So we want to be aware of that. And then along with that is code enforcement. So we are wanting to make sure that we prioritize residential and commercial properties along key routes and anticipated high visitation areas. And then some of the other recommendations was beautification. I kind of mentioned that already. Encourage residents and neighborhoods to beautify their properties and neighborhoods, and not just for the World Cup, but for the beautification of Wyandotte County in general, to keep this going on, the pride of Wyandotte County, to keep our neighborhoods looking good. Plant flowers, repairs, and trash will be a big part of it. In that, if there's a crowd, there's going to be a lot of trash. So we want to be mindful of that as well. And then the Neighborhood Resource Center, they would be a conduit to get information to the neighborhood groups. Is there anything else I need to say? Is that about enough? Because there's neighborhood contest. I'm not supposed to go through the whole thing, but I'm going to skip a few. I'll just say neighborhood contest, adopt a team, sister city engagement, and some of the people on our group brought that idea to us. So we're looking for opportunities to engage existing sister cities and do something with that. So it's in our recommendation. So hopefully that will be. Okay. Some ideas to consider: mentorship programs, soccer clinics or tournaments, youth engagement, short-term rental changes. And I won't go through that, but that's just some of the ideas. And I think I can probably stop there. Well, education outreach, yes.
That particular one, adopt a team, how would that work?
Let me look at what we wrote here.
There.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It says explore opportunities for groups or neighborhoods to adopt a team from the tournament. So whatever, if a team is coming here and let's just say if it's a team from, I don't know, any area, I don't want to say one because it could be from any area, but if a group within Kansas City, whether it's Soccer Nation or whether it's any particular neighborhood, and I guess if a particular neighborhood wanted to adopt a team, say if they are interested in a team from, where's some of our teams coming from?
Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico. Thank you. A team coming from Mexico and someone wanted to adopt that team, then they would work with that team and they could provide that team resources and they could have informal matches, just any number of things. We're not trying to say specifically what you would have to do. We're just saying that this is an idea that if you wanted to adopt a team.
It's like we could host them,
Yes.
help them out, show them around the city or help them out.
I don't think it go that far. I think it's just a matter of representing and cheering rather than engaging with the teams. The engagement with the teams, there's not going to happen.
This idea is to actually do something specifically with
With the team,
but
no.
to have different neighborhoods cheer for
At the neighborhood level,
Yes, yes.
have friendly competitions among neighborhoods, see whose team goes further in tournament, that kind of.
That answers our question.
Okay. When I was thinking adopt a team, because in our group, we talked about informal matches, not the official matches, but if people from a country wanted to engage also in an informal match, that was one of our ideas as well. And that's probably more of that pop-up soccer pitch.
What about the sister city engagement? Is that about?
For instance, every city has sister cities. We work with Cambodia and Wales right now, and Germany. I think Germany's actually one of our sister cities. I think so. Yeah, we do. We do.
I can't think of them now, but
no,
Thought we did.
for Mexico is Uruapan.
Mhm.
you told us our sister cities, and I have it written down, but I don't have it in my memory. So we do have sister cities, and that was how the idea came up, because they will probably in some form or fashion be here.
Mhm.
We could do something with our sister cities, yes. Okay.
You do need-
Yes.
Question's a little bit different. We talked about a while back, boots on the grounds, the communication component. I know you got the social media and all that other stuff. Have you established some type of conduit for communication, direct contact?
For visitors? Yeah,
Yeah.
Linda, I'll let you.
That would be that neighborhood resource kit that we're going to put together, or someone's going to put together a whole packet of information to inform the neighborhoods. And we're looking to the livable neighborhood to help us, to help with that. But that neighborhood resource kit is going to be key in getting information, because there's going to be so much going on, and it just seems like you can't ever get out too much information, because people just are out of the loop for what's going on. And you'll have someone say, well, I didn't know the World Cup was going. So I think the sooner we can start on the neighborhood resource kit, because as I said, getting the communities, getting the neighborhoods excited about this, wanting the visitors to be here, because we don't want people to come here and say, well, that was just a rude town. Those people were rude. So I think if we can inform the neighborhoods, the citizens of Wyandotte County, what's going on and all of that, the sooner we can do that, the better. Because if we are welcoming, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Linda, Alan, I have a question regarding coordination as it pertains sort of to neighborhoods, but this beautification discussion, really, is there going to be any coordination with KDOT about cleaning up our major thoroughfares like I-70, 635, 435, there's a lot of trash. And just thinking about like, if it's a main corridor to Indian Springs, for instance, if that might end up at Park and Ride project. Okay, so is there a coordinated discussion about, hey, we need this to be cleaned up on these on and off ramps and how we kind of spruce those areas up that are going to be absolutely high traffic areas, 7th Street, Lewis and Clark, just making sure that all the lights our bulbs are replaced, any trash that might be out and about, any, quick beautification projects. I mean, I don't think this is probably a surprise, but that the former UMB Bank Tower, we've talked about the fact that, hey, we're going to figure out how to dress that up, whether it's, wayfaring or part of the logo or something, but we need to make sure that those entrance ways into the community and high traffic patterns are very clean. I didn't know if there'd already been a discussion with KDOT about, hey, are you all going to put extra money into filling potholes along those major thoroughfares or making sure that there's clean and tidy?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Representative Curtis, I know that in her on-site, you'll hear more about some of those initiatives. Yeah.
And I have another question. So we're gonna have people from other parts of the world, and now that you said about code enforcement and people being out on the street or that kind of stuff. So what I'm going at is like people from all over the world, like Spain, Italy, they're used to being like really friendly and happy. And you said that you don't want to be like, oh, those people are really rude. Like what happens if do we have a music after hours? I mean, because I'm unaware of that. Could you have music afterwards for the people that are having party at those rentals? It's just a question. Do we have
Yeah, and I will say, so, Linda's section is dealing specifically with neighborhoods and residents and things that impact them. Some of these issues are addressed in our on-site section as we talk about what visitors will experience while they're here.
And what about for commercials? Where can I get that information? Because I have a venue now, I plan on entertaining the guests. So do we have a time for the outdoor music?
That's something I think we would need to look at and see, are you asking in terms of like the codes, in terms of like?
Yeah, I don't want to be violating the codes, yeah.
Yeah, that's something we would need to.
With the city? Who would I go to find out about that outdoor music?
We will have to get you that.
Business office? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you'll hold a second, that's addressed in our on-site experience section. As far as I know right now, there's no countdown clock in Wyandotte County. Is there any other questions on the neighborhood section? I think we're getting into some other areas of the report.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Linda. All right, our next section is business and workforce, and Greg Kendall.
Thanks, everybody. So I should say, we've had some phenomenal turnouts for our task force meetings. Guys, Alan, you've been a part of those, but easily about 30-ish people each time. And frankly, it does sort of speak to the goal of the long-term sustainability of this, is that we really do want to make sure that businesses are engaged in a different way. So we're kind of siloed, like most communities, but we're kind of siloed. Some folks are probably working with Edgar, and some folks are with Visit KCK, and some with the Chamber, and some with the EDC. As a part of this discussion, we really want to be able to do something that's more sustainable around not just, a roundtable, but really figuring out how we do a better job of coordination and not duplication. This can all largely be kind of boiled down to a number of things. One is assessment. What do the businesses need? What do they want? Developing a database of emails and contacts, that actually is probably the most difficult part of what our group is tasked with, is actually coming up with a really good list. Now, we've already started working with the unified government. They're going through some transitions. Timing is everything, right? So of course, if you want data, let's start when there's a transition. And so that should make it easier. And so, figuring out how we get that contacts, working with Visit KCK to get, contacts they may have, and making sure that we've compiled this. Sometimes in any community, you get sort of proprietary around all this contact information. And we really want to kind of take down those walls and say, look, for the common good of making sure that we can get information out, right? Just letting our businesses know when these events are happening should help them in a lot of ways just be prepared. And that goes to just this whole idea of how do we get our businesses better prepared for people coming, let them know that people are coming, they're coming for dinner, they're coming to visit, and we need to let them know about that. At the same time, it's how do we let them in? How do they make money on this deal? And so where there are opportunities for, say, the unified government or Visit KCK or us to purchase things as a part of this at the local level, we highly encouraging that we buy local. Start with Wyandotte County first and see if there's a business that can do this. Whether we're doing it as an event where we've got vendor fairs or whatever the case may be, really looking hard at that. The second big piece of this is partnerships, a lot of collaboration. Inside the plan, the deeper plan, you'll see there's a whole laundry list of people's names and contacts, and that will continue to grow so that we just are sharing more information about who are in NBRs, who are we, who's the chamber, just the toolbox. I mean, we work together, but most people don't know collectively what the other group is doing. And so that is not just something that has to be for the World Cup, but it's a really good target to say, look, we have this happening. This needs to happen by this date. And so there's nothing like a crisis and a deadline to kind of say, look, we got to move forward on this. So partnerships with collaboration, reducing the duplication, this education and outreach part. So the way that our plan is really laid out, and you can advance forward, Alan, is that it's really kind of asking the question to the businesses, what do you need to be thinking about? How do you make sure that you're ready? That can be, understanding language, we've had some conversations about international currency. The United States, we use credit cards a lot, but not every country does that. In fact, we use a lot of credit cards. So we've already been talking to some of our banking partners to say, are you prepared for currency transfers? And, are you ready for, language translation? Are you going to run promotional events? Are you prepared for, safety? There's a police program with the unified government where you can tie into their camera system. So this is a really good way to ask a lot of questions about, hey, we're not telling you how to do your business. We just want you to make sure you're prepared. And that includes supply chain. So if you know that you're a restaurant, there's going to be peaks when we have a lot more people in town. So do you have enough food purchased in advance? Do you have enough storage for that? Do you need a loan to make that happen? We need to be working on those things, sooner than later. And then this is all tied around programming. So, I keep using Edgar because he's sitting right here. If it was Renee with the chamber, I'd be saying the same thing, but we are all doing programming and education outreach, but as opposed to doing it 4 times on the same topic, let's create a master calendar and make sure that we're doing it both English and Spanish would be the most ideal in all these cases. Let's video it so that we can put it on a website that is a common platform among all of us so that it's being shared consistently, but then hit on all the topics that we need to hit on around marketing or insurance or supply chain or whatever the case may be, so that we are all sort of having access to that information and not competing to do that to our targeted audiences. So a lot of that in there. The other piece is workforce. And again, this is another surveying component. So those restaurants in particular, what kind of ramp up do you need? Do you need more workforce? And if so, what kind of workforce? Let's see if we can figure that out. There's a couple of different angles that's in the report about how to do that. I think one of the big ideas is looking at our various school districts, and this includes Bonner Springs, Edwardsville, Piper, Turner, KCK, Bishop Ward. All of them have an academy structure, if you will. And so for particularly those that are tied into business, marketing, hospitality, if we can do this assessment and say, look, do you have a website? Do you need help with marketing? Do you need help with coming up with ideas of how you might do a special promotional event during the World Cup? Why don't we match up these kids in these academies with the businesses? And now that's a true Kaufman real world life experience. That becomes a capstone project rather than coming up with something that's, a maybe thing. This is real life. You could actually help a business do better. And that becomes, I think, a really interesting connection to all of this. And maybe we tie it in with some swag and some other things to make it more special for the kids. But we think that's something that we could start with this, but it's sustainable if we could keep moving it forward. And again, it's really tied into engaging businesses in a different way, sort of everybody knocking down some of the silos and saying, look, we can do this. It's all for the common good, and there's nothing better than to do this for a purpose like the World Cup. That's where I'll stop.
Question. I've had two businesses from Nashville and one from South Carolina. How would they get a hold of, I mean, as far as bringing their business here for that event? How, is there a website? I mean, do they get a hold of the city? Do they get a hold of us through the chain aspect? They've been calling me. I don't exactly know how to.
I'm happy to talk to them at the EDC. That would be something we would naturally do. Admittedly, unabashedly, we think White first, right? So if we're going to really go out on a limb and help a business to get access to Wyandotte County events, we're going to be very much about, first, let's think about what Wyandotte County businesses can benefit from it. But if we have businesses that want to come in and be here permanently, give me a call.
Okay.
Any other questions for Greg about business and workforce? All right, excellent. Our last section is on-site experience. Representative Pam Curtis.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. So our committee focused pretty much on what the visitor experience would be once they get here. And you can go ahead and advance that. A lot of our discussion will mirror what a lot of the other committees talked about. So I'll just kind of tick down the list a little bit. Signage was a big issue for us, particularly downtown. We figure people are going to be able to find their ways easily out to Compass Minerals and to Children's Mercy Park. But when people are trying to, particularly during those off times, trying to find things to do or trying to make their way to St. John's for the watch party or to Memorial Hall, if that happens, it's really difficult for us to navigate downtown. So we think some kind of signage, even though it may be temporary, ideally, the big idea would be for us to have a branding and have new signage and, you know, be able to have wayfinding all over the county. But given the time constraints and financial constraints, we may have to look at doing something that's more on a temporary basis that just helps people to navigate to our area, particularly downtown. We talked about utilizing the street poles that we already have and developing some kind of banner. There was a lot of ideas on what direction that could take. After hearing Alan, that might perhaps be something that folds into what they come up with as far as the signage for, you know, our own personal kind of WICO identifier. Talked about including definitely multi-languages and language translation being an important thing that we take into consideration. Cultural training, that was something that we spent quite a bit of time talking about because depending on what teams come here, there could be a lot of cultural differences, and just being sensitive to what other cultures that may be staying with us for long periods of time could be helpful. You know, I mean, I'm trying to think of like an example. Like I know in some cultures, like extending your hand for a handshake is not something that is seen as something that's favorable. So just being conscious of whatever visitors we have and what their backgrounds are. And so moving on there. With that number of visitors to our area, we figure access to connectivity to the internet, that's going to be critical. And just thinking through that, once we have like a lot of the locations identified where people will be gathering, then we may be able to assess those needs a little more. But looking at creating, you know, some hotspots, like if there's a park and ride, perhaps that area needs to have increased connectivity, but just thinking through those both on a safety factor and then just on a communications factor as well. When we got to our placemaking and art, we really focused, and this is a lot of crossover with what the neighborhood groups also discussed, but focusing on those gateways, like where people enter into our community, really focusing on trying to make those areas particularly welcoming and attractive. We also talked about creating a KCK ambassadors, having people that perhaps when we know that we're going to have a lot of visitors, being at our public transit sites, just to like provide information, or even maybe just even riding the bus and engaging with visitors and sharing with them, you know, where they might be able to go to eat or to whatever needs that they may have.
I have a question.
Okay.
When you're touching the subject right now that you're on,
Uh-huh.
do we have a information like a hub or something for the tourists yet, a sign or nothing yet? Like the translation, or I'm interested of providing or assisting Wyandotte County with Latin community. You know, I have a venue where it's pretty big.
Mhm.
And I said, they don't open your mouth and they'll put you to work. So while I'm gonna open my mouth anyhow, because I'm here to assist. So I have this place called Latin Quarters, and I think it's gonna be kind of like convenient because it's gonna be a lot of people from Latin America. And I think like Edgar or the guys here, they travel to other countries and they do work. So I think with their expertise, I mean, maybe working together, we can have, I could not donate my place, but I could have my place available because it's very convenient, you know? And I mean, I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you guys don't have a place picked out yet, this is down the street from Memorial Hall.
These are all recommendations and ideas.
Yeah, I'm just throwing
And
that
I
in there.
think anybody that wants to engage and build on all of this and to be a champion, our committee really just focused on what are the things that make sense? What are the ideas that are doable? But there's no boundaries on what you can do. Like if
Right.
you want to take this and be a champion of it and you have a place and you want to create that,
Yeah.
go for it.
And another thing that I want to talk about, who do I talk to? For instance, like the clock, I got a connection with Rolex.
Uh-huh.
And I went to the Olympics and they had Omega for the clock. And I'm pretty sure I could contact somebody at Rolex. And in Wyandotte County, we could probably have that clock that you guys want, but I don't know where you guys want to put it. But I actually got to make that call to Rolex.
Talk to Alan.
Talk to Alan.
I'd love to have a discussion with you. I know their KC 2026 is working on kind of a regional countdown clock, so that may be something that's good to work with them on as well. But I can certainly give you some context.
Something. Anytime that you go to an airport, if you're military, something like that, you always know. I always look for the USO, you know. I was trying to find out if that would go into having some of those people be at the airport, you know, when people get right off the plane, because I know if I fly into Italy or if I fly in, you know, I know to go look for
Yeah.
English or go look for someone to help me to where I'm going to go. So I think that would possibly be a good aspect of people at the airport, you know, helping on where to go.
Great idea. Like we have a lot of good ideas. It's just a matter of what we're able to finance and what we're able to do and what you were able to find champions for. So, another thing, I don't know if many of you who have been around for years like me may recall that there are these flagpoles between our city hall and our courthouse. And originally those flagpoles, they had the flags of all the countries where our residents have come from. And so it was always just so impressive and beautiful, but it got so expensive that at some point they stopped doing that. So that was an idea, was to bring back, you know, to have some kind of a representation of how diverse our community is and how many different cultures and countries the residents of Wyandotte County KCK make up. So, and I think, I think a lot of the other stuff is pretty repetitive. One last thing I do want to mention, and we spent a lot of time talking about this, is that, you know, people have basic needs, and we're going to have a lot of people who are here who are trying to enjoy our community, maybe waiting for a bus. If you're downtown KCK and you have to go to the bathroom, where do you go? It is a challenge. So just thinking through as we have those visitors, the need for just some basic accommodations like public restrooms, even if it's just porta potties at, the park and rides or the transit sites, same as like with the broadband kind of thing. So those were things that we spent a lot of time on, just knowing that for visitors, just making sure that their comfort and their basic needs are taken care of, that's important.
Have we gotten in touch with the deaf school and the blind school? Because we will be having people coming in also that are deaf, I didn't know if that was.
I know the blind school's been in the loop, and they're here right in our community. The deaf school is in Olathe, so they're a little bit further away, but that's not a bad idea to reach out to that community as
Yes,
well.
the Kansas State Blind School was on the neighborhood.
On the neighborhood committee.
They're going to do a blind slope, a blind slow pitch. So yes, they are in the loop. So, but that's good.
Right, any other questions or comments on the on-site experience section of the report? Nothing, do we have any other questions or comments overall about the report?
Great job, Alan.
If not,
Maybe
I-
explain to everyone, I mean, we know, but to everyone, like the next step, the process,
yeah, so next steps here is I would love if we have a motion from our task force to accept this report and forward on to the mayor and the commission. And then once we take that step, this task force would be able to work on some of these specific initiatives as people are interested in some of these areas, as we identify again, champions, as we've talked about, and funding opportunities to move some of these projects forward. But I think the first concrete next step is for us to accept this report if this task force is so willing. So I would accept an emotion.
I'd be happy to make a motion that we accept the Wyandotte County World Cup Readiness Task Force report as presented today and present that to the mayor.
second.
Agree.
At a second?
Yes, second, yeah.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor of accepting the motion?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for your time. As I said, I think this is the end of this phase of the task force as we move this report on to the mayor and the commission and the UG. But we want to continue everyone to stay engaged. We know this is sort of the outline of what we think we can do, but now it's actually doing the work.
Alan, quick question. I know there are at least a couple folks here who have some ideas that they want to advance that, might be reasonable. Do they reach out to you? What's the process for folks who might be watching this or listening to, give exact examples of what they might want to try to do?
Yeah, I would encourage, reach out to myself. I'm happy to forward this information on to the proper parties, reach out to anyone else on the task force, to the mayor's office. As I said, I think Representative Curtis said it well. These are the recommendations that we were able to come up with based on the information we know. But we know that there's a lot of great ideas. There's a lot of businesses that may and neighborhoods that may have ideas of things they want to do, and we encourage everyone to do that to welcome these visitors in 2026. All right. If there's nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
All right. Is there a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
I'm Israel Mendez. I'm Israel Mendez.
I'm on the board of trustees at the community college. But I get so much stuff as a trustee through that one. So I don't want it, so if you're gonna contact me, that's my cell, but Sutton for students first at gmail.com. And in that way, it won't get lost with my college stuff. If that makes sense, I try to keep that separate.
And go ahead, I would use the or something, go ahead.
But you'll have my cell number. And I scratched, since I was doing it, I scratched it up because as a trustee, I get a lot of stuff. And I want it to be separate, so that's why I give that
Oh,
out.
that's what you did.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
I'll
I don't,
listen
it may
to
get
you
lost.
today.
It may get lost in that one because I've got a lot of stuff.
About doing something about school, I mean, like college, to talk about history, you know, of the, you know, the
Okay,
family.
have you been to the college? Because there is that's in the administration building.
My car.
You just go up in the administration building, there is a whole room about the college and this area.
I contacted somebody to try to get some aspect of the family because, you know, got a lady, the vice president of historical department, got a lady, her grandfather, or something was in AAA, her grandmother, like in the movie with the AAA. Yeah, and her father was a Tuskegee Airman, and he also was a co-founder